And now, deep PED thoughts with old Shaker.
Having just had a nice jump in muscular body weight that I can attribute to hyperplasia from using oxytocin slow release form, I realized that my gains sounded a lot like what I heard reported from people that have used Increlex, IGF-1LR3 receptor grade, and so on. Whenever someone like this has a successful run, they say that their first run, their first cycle, is always their most dramatic, always their most satisfying, and that your second, third, fourth, and fifth are diminishing returns. And you'll still see results, but you have to work harder for them. They are smaller. You're never going to repeat that first burst that you see of new gains. And why is that? According to what I've been reading lately and what I'm putting together in my head, it seems like it's a matter of available satellite cells. If you have activated satellite cells sitting on the bench, ready to go into the game, that's pretty much what you can count on for your gains for that cycle. So if you're doing your first such cycle, think about the length of time that you would have had to accrue those activated satellite cells through training, through diet, through different metabolic stress circumstances over many, many years. So no doubt, your first cycle of putting those fully into the games, getting them to mature and differentiate and grow and become full new mature muscle tissue is going to be the most dramatic when you've got the most sitting on the bench. And believe me, by the time you get to that first cycle, you've likely got 20, 30, 40 years of accruing that, or at least not fully activating them, and now pop. Here we go. So it stands to reason that your second cycle would not be as effective as your first cycle. From what I've read, there should be like a 3-month waiting period in between where you're accruing those new satellite cells. Well, not accruing the satellite cells, but activating the baby cells and getting them ready to grow, ready to mature. But here I am on my second oxytocin cycle, and I'm seeing at least half of the gains that I saw the first time around, and I expected no more. I didn't take 3 months. I took 3 weeks. I did pretty much a week of keto and pretty much 2 weeks of fasting. In between, and boom, here we are again. So I think fasting fast-tracked me, to activating some of those satellite cells and getting ready for this current oxytocin cycle. Do I know whether I would have done just as well without that or not? Who knows? But here's my big question. Here's what I want you to think about. When you get to your first steroid cycle, what if the same applies? Everybody says your first steroid cycle is your best. Everybody says your first 6 months of training naturally are your biggest growth phase. What if what's happening during those growth phases is the same thing that's happening when you use Increlex, when you use a slow-release oxytocin, when you use IGF-1LR3 receptor grade? What if most of the growth that we're seeing through cycling or whatever we're doing is coming from hyperplasia, or at least partially through hyperplasia, where the only hypertrophy that we're experiencing is the growing of previously activated satellite cells? Just something to think about. Is that what's happening? Or is every time that we make a jump, are we on phase 2 of the hyperplasia cycle as opposed to just hypertrophy?